So I'm Louisa.
Yeah.
Jordan.
And I'm Jordan.
And our presentation is on COVID vaccines. This is our table of contents. So we're going to go over 4 types of vaccines. We're going to go over the methodology and efficacy as well as the dosages and the boosters. So in the United States, there are 4 approved or authorized COVID-19 vaccines. The first one is Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna, which are both mRNA vaccines. The second is Novavax, which is a protein subunit. The third is Johnson & Johnson or Janssen, and it is a viral vector vaccine. And all of these include primary series as well as boosters. So if you get 2 shots, you're going to have to get a booster. The vaccine recommendation is based on age as well as when you first received it or when you last received it. Immunocompromised patients have specific recommendations to get the vaccines, as well as boosters. So you have to be very careful because your immune system is already suppressed. So yeah. Side effects after COVID-19 vaccines are common, but severe allergic reactions like carditis of the heart is rare. And this is just a picture of the overall. So we will be going over Pfizer and Moderna and Novavax because those are the 4 major ones. But as Becca mentioned in her presentation, AstraZeneca is a DNA-based viral vector, and attenuated kill or inactivated virus, which Joanne went over, include Covaxin, Sinopharm, and Sinovac. So Pfizer was the first COVID vaccine to receive emergency use in December 2020 because of how rapid COVID-19 was spreading and how rapid people were dying. It was also the first approved in 2021 for people ages 16 and older. As I said before, it is a messenger RNA and it must be stored in a freezer level temperature. So that makes it very hard to transport. Who can get it? As I said before, anyone ages 16 and older in the US, and 6 months infants to 15 years are eligible under the emergency use authorization. Methodology. It uses mRNA technology, which is very new. It works by sending instructions to your cells to make copies of the spike protein, which is similar to the one that is found on COVID-19 structure. Our cells will then recognize it and it will recognize that it doesn't belong. So your immune system will then be activated and it will produce antibodies as well as prompt the body to recognize the cell, and it will attack the cell once you become exposed to it. So later on, if you get infected again, your immune system will recognize it and will attack it. Efficacy in the initial phase 3, it exceeded expectations with about 95% of efficacy. The new bivalent booster prevents the 2 virus strains, which are the original and the Omicron BA4 and BA5. And this is an overall of the methodology. So the dosage and booster for Pfizer, the first 2 shots need to be 3 to 8 weeks apart, and the dosages are different for infants and children, and boys and men between ages 12 and 13. The CDC suggests waiting 8-week interval between the 2 shots to reduce the risk of myocarditis, like I said, which is a rare, severe infection. For the booster, most adults can get it. They can either choose to get the updated Pfizer BioNTech or Moderna bivalent booster. They should get it 2 months after they get the first 2 shots. And then infants as young as 6 months and children as well as teenagers are also eligible to get the booster. Moderna. So the EUA granted Moderna to be able to use their vaccine in December 2020. This was a week after BioNTech, so they were just a little short. They have full approval for people 18 and older to use the vaccine in January 2020. It uses the same mRNA technology as Pfizer BioNTech. It also needs to be stored in freezer level temperatures, like I said, so it makes it hard to transfer. So who can get it? Infants, children, and adults ages 6 months and older in the US. Methodology is similar to Pfizer. It sends an mRNA vaccine instructions to the body to make a spike protein. This, as I said before, will train your immune system to recognize it and attack it the next time you get infected. For efficacy, it is similar. So it had a 95% efficacy as well as Pfizer BioNTech. But later data showed that for specifically Moderna, it wanes over time. So you need to get the booster so it can get your immune system back to the level that it needs to be. So how well does it work against variants? The bivalent booster was FDA authorized at the same time as Pfizer. It can also target the original SARS-CoV-2 as well as the Omicron BA4 and BA5. For dosage and booster for Moderna, it's the same as Pfizer again. You're supposed to get primary 2 shots, 48 weeks apart. You have to delay your second shot if you've had COVID for at least 3 months. Boys and men between ages 12 and 39, the CDC suggests waiting an 8-week interval between the shots, again, to reduce the risk of myocarditis. For the booster, most adults should get an updated bivalent booster at least 2 months after primary Moderna series. Infants as young as 6 months, children and teenagers can get the bivalent booster. This was designed to protect against the original strain of SARS-CoV-2, as well as Omicron variants BA4 and BA5. And this is an overall view of why we need to get the booster, because as I stated before, the vaccine wanes over time. So when you get the booster, it will help your immune system get back to robust levels, and that will protect you from other strains. I will pass it on to Jordan, who will be going over Novavax.
Thank you, Louisa. So Novavax, which can go by Novavaxoid or Covavax, was the 4th COVID-19 vaccine to be administered in the US. It's a protein adjuvant, so it's performing almost as well as the mRNA vaccines that Louisa mentioned earlier, and it did that in their early trials. It is simpler to make than some of the other vaccines and can be stored in the refrigerator, which means it's more accessible to more people around the world because it can be transferred easily. And it was authorized in the US in July 2022, and a booster was announced a few months later in October. So who can get it? People 12 and older are allowed to get the Nova vaccine. So the methodology and efficacy of Novavax is this is a protein adjuvant, as I said. So an adjuvant is an ingredient used to strengthen the immune response. It contains the spike protein of the coronavirus itself, but formulated as a nanoparticle. That means it cannot cause disease. So when the vaccine is injected, this stimulates the immune system to produce antibodies and a T cell immune response. So 90% effective overall against lab confirmed and symptomatic infection, and 100% effective against moderate and severe disease. So the efficacy was actually found lower at about 67% in Hispanic or Latino participants. Still unknown as to why. Dosage and booster. There's 2 doses. They're about 3 to 8 weeks apart. If you had COVID recently, delaying your second primary dose or your booster by 3 months from the first symptoms is recommended, and you should follow that. The booster protects against the original SARS-CoV-2 virus, and it may not protect against recent Omicron subvariants. So adults who have not received a booster shot previously may choose to get it 6 months after completing their primary vaccination. Adults are eligible for the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna bivalent booster at least 2 months after their primary Novavax. And teenagers ages 12 through 17 must get a Pfizer, BioNTech bivalent booster, not the Moderna. Next, I will be going over the Johnson & Johnson, which is pronounced Janssen sometimes. It was FDA authorized in February of 2021. This is a carrier or virus vector vaccine, a type of vaccine that has been used before for the flu. It is a one-shot strategy, which was a favorite for many citizens as they were very hesitant to go get multiple vaccines put into their body. The CDC expressed a preference for the Pfizer and Moderna shots, and the FDA put new restrictions on who can get the vaccine based on another review of data on life-threatening clots associated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So who can get it? Adults 18 and older who specifically request the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So the methodology and efficacy of Johnson & Johnson, this is a carrier vaccine, which uses a different approach than the mRNA vaccines to instruct human cells to make the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. Scientists engineered a harmless adenovirus as a shell to carry genetic code on the spike proteins to the cells. So this is like a Trojan horse. Once the code is inside the cells produce a spike protein to train the body's immune system, which creates antibodies and memory cells to protect against an actual SARS-CoV-2 infection. The vaccine showed a 67% efficacy in preventing moderate to severe critical disease by 14 days after vaccination and a 66% effective 28 days after vaccination. So it's not a really good efficacy for this particular vaccine. And for dosage and booster, as I said, it's a single shot. It's fully effective 2 weeks after vaccination. Anyone who had the Johnson & Johnson primary shot can get a Pfizer or Moderna at least 2 months later. Delaying your booster by 3 months from when you started to experience symptoms is recommended. If you got the single Johnson & Johnson shot, you should get a second shot from either Pfizer or Moderna at 4 weeks and a booster 2 months later. Immunocompromised teenagers and adults ages 12 and older can receive a second booster of a mRNA vaccine at least 4 months after their first booster. And that will conclude our presentation on the several COVID vaccines. These are our references and any questions or comments.
Questions? All right, till then, wake up. Questions?
I have a question. I don't know if you guys did research on the AstraZeneca vaccine, but what is the dosage or the booster recommendation? AstraZeneca.
We did not. We focused specifically on Pfizer and Moderna and vaccine Johnson & Johnson because those are the four main approved types of vaccines to use in the United States.
Okay.
Questions? You may ask this. Yeah.
All right, what kind of vaccine did you get?
According to everything, I personally didn't get it because I have a device in my heart. But if I was to get it, I would get Pfizer. It has better efficacy.
You are very open. Nice body.
God, no.
Okay, another question?
I have another question. Do you guys know if you looked into do these vaccines affect any pregnant women?
Was an article on that. Can't remember off the top of my head, not gonna lie to you, but there is possible side effects and they include headache, tiredness, muscle pain, fever, chills, nausea. And if they last for more than a few weeks, they need to go see their doctor as soon as possible.
It was actually a myth. I mean, a lot of pregnant women were scared at the beginning of the pandemic to get their COVID vaccines because how they thought it would affect their baby. Would it turn into a mutant alien if they got it injected into their body? but actually there has been no links to it causing any defects with your birth. Actually, you just transfer the antibodies to the baby, which is helping build their immunity.
I
Thank
want
you.
to know if it is the CDC. Prohibit or not the use of the vaccine in pregnant.
They put a warning label on it. So they put a warning label on Pfizer and Moderna, and a heavy warning label on Novavax and Johnson and Johnson. Because as you guys saw, they have.
That's important. That's point that's very important. Third question. And do you include this in the presentation? Would be good if you include. Will be more complete. It's a very important one. Yeah. Another thing that I believe or to you mentioned is the secondary or collateral effect of the vaccine. And you mentioned something that I'm not completely agree.
There's
Because-
updated research though that it's no harm to pregnant women. So that was the beginning of the pandemic. They put the warnings on each of the vaccines because they didn't have much research on the effects of pregnant women, but it's on the CDC right now that it's highly recommended for pregnant women to get the COVID vaccine. There are no known effects.
Okay. Okay. So any clarification about this is important to have. Initially, it was a warning, and it nowadays is authorized to be. That's good to clarify. Because the important population always going to have some worry about this choice. There's something that was mentioned to you about some of the collateral effect of the vaccine. And at least in the clinic of my daughter, we detect several children in the age, generally in the age of the teenagers years, that develop carditis, myocarditis after the vaccine. After the Pfizer and Moderna, both, the spike one. So, I don't know if you, or maybe, okay, there's several papers that you review. But I believe that you must include also this, the possibility or the warning about carditis in cases of like the teenager years. And when appears this carditis, if before or after the second dose of the vaccine or immediately after this.
I get on two slides. I was doing myocarditis and pericarditis, because those were the two most common
Yeah.
symptoms that were found in young adults.
Collateral effect of the vaccine. The risk of carditis. And noting the last vaccine, you mentioned the novel. Go to the back. I have one question. No. Okay, next slide. No, next. Which one was the last?
Johnson and Johnson.
Okay, pass. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so what in the other one? Okay, in the first paragraph, we can read fully effective 2 weeks after vaccination, yeah? Okay. Why 2 weeks after vaccination? You confer or you produce the vaccine produced fully effective. Why 2 weeks?
Why 2 weeks after? Jordan, Dr. Bido is asking, why is it fully effective 2 weeks after vaccination?
For it. If you know, you
Um,
have the knowledge of why, just do explain.
I would believe it has to do with the body building up the immunity. The virus vector vaccine. So.
Let's go when we learn about the immune response. When you can tell me about the immune response after the first contact with an antigen or a second contact with that antigen.
Sorry, what is the question?
Let's go over the immune response that you learned in the class.
Right.
Considering the 2 weeks of after vaccination.
How your immune system
Primary.
recognizes it.
Let's go over the primary immune response. Let's go over the secondary immune response. What happened in the primary immune response?
Primary, your body's going to recognize it when it enters.
Okay, when it's going to initiate the process of immune response, when it's fully in the top in the immune response.
It's after.
How many days after the first contact? Around this,
Somebody
around
speak to the speaker.
around the 14, 15 days. The first contact, when you initiate the immune response, is going to have a delay about 3 to 6 days. And the peak starts in the 14, in the 10, and take the peak in the 14, 15 days. So that's why you have a fully effective of the vaccine at 15 days, because it's the primary immune response. What happened in the secondary immune response?
Go ahead.
How I want to be the answer of the immune system after this second contact with the same antigen. It's going to take.
What's the question?
Now, the question is, we are analyzing the primary immune response and we are analyzing the secondary immune response.
It's gonna.
And if it
The
was-
secondary, like, what is it? Like, what's the secondary or?
Yes. explain
He's asking
to me
what's
how
going to
happened, the
happen.
secondary immune response.
It's going to recognize it and eliminate it.
But how it's going to be? It's going to be.
The
as
secondary
low
takes
as-
longer than the primary immune response.
Because you're
Sorry, what you said?
The secondary immune response takes longer than the primary immune response.
no. No,
Not
the secondary is going to
It's
be
the other
quicker
way.
because you've already been exposed to it, so the secondary is gonna act quick and eliminate them.
And it's going to have a
Really?
prolonged effect. Prolonged effect is another thing. It's not going to take prolonged time to be produce the immune response. Okay, it's going to be in hours because you have memory cells ready for the second contact with the antigen, and it's going to be in 72 hours the peak, and the peak is 10 times more potent than the primary immune response, and it's going to be in your body, protecting you for several months. That's why you can say that here is because the effect of the primary immune response. At 50 days, you have the reaction immediately, the protection immediately. Not immediately, but take 15 days. In the booster, in those that have the booster, what we have is a secondary immune response that is going to be for a long time. That's why you will need another booster immediately in 2 months. You can do it in 6 months or 1 year. Clear? Yeah? Very good. Thank you very much.